live according to your will. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay. Last week we were. No, we were here. Some of us were here. I was here. We wrapped up this one section that the sayings concerning the fools and the wise. With this wrapped up this one section that the apparently I forgot to shut off my browser. The things that can happen. Okay. Yeah, there's just nothing like all of a sudden your voice starts coming out of your computer, and it's on a significant delay. Anyhow, we wrapped up the previous section, and we're starting a new section, which is called "The Words of the Wise People." Now, as this particular section goes, this is a section that includes things from other people. There has been some debate and study into who is the source of these various sayings. Of particular note is the wisdom of Amenemope. I think I pronounced that right. Don't quote me on it. But needless to say, this particular collection is something that comes out of Egypt. And part of the reasons I think that it is because it is 30 different sayings, and so it's possible. That said, it's hard to say that the Words of the Wise People is a direct crossover from this particular book of wisdom, because when we start to look at it, we're going to see that it's not quite lining up as far as it could go. But we cannot rule out its influence. I mean, one, Solomon's not making any bones about taking wisdom from other people. I mean, the very opening line is, "Incline your ear and hear the words of the wise." So this is something that's more than just Solomon speaking. Also, remember that one of Solomon's wives is the daughter of Pharaoh. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that the daughter of Pharaoh is going to introduce Solomon to this. And it's from her people. So there is a chance, particularly being a higher up, that you would be aware of it. So really, we do think that there is something of a crossover with this particular book of wisdom. We don't rule it out. But one thing that we can say is that Solomon didn't lift them word for word. Instead, they've been sifted for his own needs. Particularly in how they fit with the theme of the wisdom of God. They have been changed so that they're not quite what they used to be, but they fit better with what has been the overarching themes of the book of Proverbs. So that they're consistent. As I've heard at least one scholar say, with the book of Proverbs, Solomon basically took the wisdom of the world and ran it through a God filter. which is not 100% true, but in this case it fits because we do have um, Solomon admitting to using the words of the wise. Now, that said, it does not also mean that he's using just worldly wisdom, but that he is also, and he could be using the words of other faithful wise people. So even as he is, in some cases, apparently, oh man, tickle in my throat, taking some of the worldly wisdom and massaging it so that it fits within the context of wisdom and equal faith, and foolishness equals unbelief. It is also entirely possible that he did pull from other, faithful, wise people, which in the context of Proverbs was just repeating myself, as faithful and wise are one and the same. But this is a place where we are going to see some outside sourcing, so to speak. And it largely comes back to him saying, "Not incline your ear and hear the words of the wise, and apply your heart to my knowledge. For it will be pleasant if you keep them within you, if all of them are ready on your lips, that your trust may be in the Lord. I have made them known to you today, even to you. Have I not written for you 30 sayings of counsel and knowledge, to make you know what is right and true, that you may give a true answer to those who sent you?" Another clue that Solomon is borrowing from the Egyptian wisdom here is verse 20. We could say that obviously Solomon has not written 30 sayings of counsel and knowledge up until this point. He's written many, many more. However, the wisdom book from Egypt is a collection of 30 sayings. Not so much in the sense of the sayings that Solomon has been using, where you get those one-liners, but more in something of we could consider a longer discourse. What I mean by that is that with Solomon's Proverbs, you mostly have the parallel one-liners that may or may not be really related to the other pairs around them. We do have the loose groupings that we've been kind of mentioning here and there, not so much highlighting, but mentioning here and there. Now, with the words of the wise, it's going to be somewhat longer than just the parallel lines, but not, say a Sermon on the Mount type discourse. For those of you not familiar with the Sermon on the Mount, that is the longest sermon of Jesus. That is the longest recorded sermon of Jesus's from his ministry. That said, I'm not even sure it is the entirety of what he had to say, as I suspect his teaching sessions went on for more than just what would fill just a few pages in one of the Gospels. But what we have here is courses that are going to be, a few to several verses long, as opposed to just like one verse. All right. Which, of course, I note in the slide. But the other part that I do want to talk about here is Solomon including this outside wisdom demonstrates that there is a shadow of wisdom in the world. Um, the world is not in complete ignorance, so to speak. The world does have an inkling. What tends to be the issue is the world, in because of our sinful nature, ends up taking it the wrong way, so to speak. Um, and that happens in a couple different ways. One of the more predominant ways is it attempts to establish its righteousness solely upon this shadow of wisdom that they have. Um, in the way that it appears is in the various forms of legalism. This idea of showing yourself righteous by doing certain things, and that is your means of pleasing God, your soul means in particular. You can see this in, say, Islam. And there's a very strong strain there in Islam. You can see variations of it in even the Eastern religions, where they have these various ideas of asceticism. Did I pronounce it right? Of self-denial. It's this idea that there is a law, a rule that is governing life. You can see it to some extent in the sacrificial systems that would develop through various pagan religions. The pagan sacrifices are largely a warping of the sacrificial system which God used to give forgiveness to his people. So there is this shadow of wisdom in the world. It's just mostly the world misunderstands it. We could take. It even still exists within the world today, where it has taken on the idea of love, but instead of utilizing what God means by love, they've taken love to mean the acceptance and celebration of what anybody does. So there is this shadow of wisdom within the world, and its most common form, and really pretty much its only form, is in the word of the law. As Lutherans were not really surprised by this, in that it is a testimony that God would write his law upon our hearts, and that no longer would we be ignorant of what his will is. So that we would find wise sayings, things that would be consistent with faithful life in the world around us, is not surprising. But it really cannot be taken at the value that the world means it. And I think this is one of the places where we can get ourselves into trouble, is that we take the world at face value. Well, excuse me, we don't take the world at face value, but we take the world as we would see it. And it doesn't always mean what we think it would mean. Because it defines things differently. I know most people skip this step because it just they may not recognize its necessity, but the first step to an understanding is actually understanding what a person is saying. What do they mean by what they say? And I know this can catch people off guard a lot. One of the common places that I see this happening is in the realms of discussions with, say, Mormons. They could say one thing that sounds a lot like something that we would say, and so we would, on the surface, start to agree with them. But when you start to dig back and peel away the layers and understand what they actually mean by these words that sound like words that we would use, we can realize that they're saying something differently. Something actually very similar happens between, say, us Lutherans and the Roman Catholics. We can use similar words and actually say different things. That was actually a critique of the joint declaration on the doctrine of justification that happened back when I was in college. The Lutheran World Federation and the Roman Catholic Church signed this document, celebrated, hey, we're all on the same page. Until you started actually peeling back. What do you guys mean by the word grace? What do you mean by the word forgiveness? What do you mean by the word justification? And it comes out that, no, the Roman Catholics are still teaching what they've been teaching since the Council of Trent, and we're still teaching what we've been teaching since the Augsburg Confession. So we're using the same words, but meaning something different.
Well, I find interesting with that a lot of times is we're trying to reach the same goal by taking different roads.
Sort of, but not all roads lead to the same place. The comment was, we've got the same goal, but we're taking different roads, and you I guess you could say that, but I would have to add on to there. Not all roads lead to the same place. In fact, I would actually argue that there's only one road that leads to the right place. At least if we're going to follow what Jesus says, and as he's illustrating, there's just this one path. But anyhow, moving forwards, because moving forwards is good, except when it's bad. All right, let's get into these words of the wise. I did. Okay. I temporarily, I've confused myself now.
We haven't read them yet. We haven't read them yet.
Well, I think I know what I did here. All right. I somehow skipped to 23, 19, 21 through 21. Oops. I prepped the wrong stuff for later on. Oh boy. It's just been one of those weeks. And have you ever had one of those weeks you're just not thinking straight? Woo! This is one of those places. And I should have realized it as I'm putting this together that, you don't go from 22:17 to 21 to 23:19 to 21. So we're going to just wrap up there since Pastor Bowman made a dumb mistake. And we'll pick up in the proper place next week.
You know what's interesting before we wrap though? Look at that last Proverbs. To make you know what is right and true, that you may give a true answer to those who sent you.
Yeah, to make you know what is right and true, that you may give the true answer to those who sent you. Yeah, it's quite appropriate. In a sense, you could think of that. That's like the verse for confirmation right there. So that you can know your faith, and so that you can give a true answer.
And even on the other side, verse for life.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that is true. Well, anyhow, we're going to go ahead and wrap up since I goofed with what I did and for the next section. So we'll see you